Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. Now, today we have a new card on our free-to-play account on Sulky Hulky, which is Absorbing Man. Now, Absorbing Man has the on reveal ability of if the last card you played has an on reveal ability, this card copies it. So this guy is going to be very flexible in a lot of different lists. If you previously ran a list that put Wong in and didn't use him for more than maybe one trigger, it didn't lean into the Odin on reveal factor, then Absorbing Man is going to be a lot easier to pull off and a lot sneakier to pull off as well. So if you put him in a list that runs a Sarah, you can do him plus a Silver Surfer on the last turn. You can do a lot of really cool things. Him and Hazmat are going to be a great combo. Just any deck that runs strong on reveal abilities, he's going to be able to do some pretty cool things. And then I also have one other that on my free-to-play account, I need one more card that I think is going to be really, really nuts. And I'm excited to try it. I'm going to keep it a little bit of a secret until I get the card that I need. But Absorbing Man is so flexible in being able to be played into so many different archetypes and decks that I think he's going to be a pretty decent card to have. So for this deck, he's going to serve as a way to duplicate or have another consistent trigger of an on reveal or of a discard. Now, it does get a little bit dicey if you're rotating cards, because you'll want to make sure that the card that you played before whatever you rotated did have an on reveal to discard cards. But otherwise, he could copy your Calling Wing to get more swarm drops. He could copy Lady Sif as an additional trigger of your Apocalypse. He could copy Hellcow to do another double discard. And so previously in this list, this is a discard cycle list. Before I had Absorbing Man, I had Hela in this list. I also tried a Thor and a Sarah, and all of those felt okay. But I think Absorbing Man helps with the consistency quite a bit. Otherwise, the deck is pretty straightforward in that you throw your Morbius on 2. If you can get a Calling Wing to trigger your Swarm, you absolutely do that. You can use Swarm as a free cycle tool with your Lockjaw. You play your Dracula, whichever lane you need to win him in. Dracula is going to be great at being played into a Storm lane or a Clintar or somewhere that we need some late game power push potential. And then of course, Apocalypse can get absolutely insane in this list. If you want to watch one that has the Hela build, it's from a little while ago, but I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video as well. So that if you want to see more of this list, go ahead and jump over and check it out after we play this one. But for now, let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games, and I'll show you how to navigate it. All right, next up we have Potato Cannon. The first location is Baxter Building, so we have our Swarm, we have our Lady Sif, we have our Apocalypse, which is phenomenal. If we draw into our Absorbing Man, it's meant to be, guys. If we draw into if we drew into our Absorbing Man, we could do Lady Sif into Absorbing Man to make sure that Apocalypse gets at least 2 discard triggers. Maybe on 5 we do something like a Hellcow and a Blade, just depending on what else we draw into here. We just have Guys, I'm telling you, it is meant to be. Let's go ahead and play our Lady Sif. We're going to have a really big push in Baxter Building with our Apocalypse, and so we're going to play away from it for now. We want to try to find our win condition. Ooh, and they have some discard cards as well. So they have this Calling Wing, which I've never seen before, but I think looks very, very sleek. Let's do the Lady Sif. They have the Calling Wing, which is absolutely fine. We now have our Calling Wing as well, but I think we do our Absorbing Man to make sure Apocalypse gets as large as possible here. So we can do Absorbing Man, that's going to copy Lady Sif. Next turn, we could do our Hellcow and our Blade to discard 2 resources, unless we draw into our Dracula, at which point we absolutely want to play our Dracula instead. And so Absorbing Man is going to make sure that Apocalypse gets as large as humanly possible. If we draw into Dracula, that's going to be perfect. Otherwise, God, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Let's play our Dracula. Let's go ahead and play our Blade as well. We're going to play Dracula. We'll play Blade into the Baxter Building. We're just going to give them Hala, I think. Next turn, we can do our Hellcow and our Swarm to discard. We cannot do our Hellcow and our Swarm. Next turn, we can do our Calling Wing and our Swarm to make sure that Dracula has a good target to pull into. We're looking for our win condition. It just is this enough, though? I don't know. I don't know that we have enough of a power push in Hala either. And so we're going to do Calling Wing, we're going to do Swarm. They still have 2 Swarms to play as well. So they might actually be able to have us beaten here, but we're going to give it a shot. Our Blade unfortunately discarded our Hell Cow. We could have had a couple of additional discard triggers. They had their Morbius. We didn't draw into our Morbius. And they discarded their Swarm early, which gives them some flexibility in that late game gameplay. All right, so then they do double down in Hellfire Club. They do Gambit, which destroys some unit in that middle location. We do our Dracula, which discards our Apocalypse. We have to hope that now Dracula our Calling Wing absorbs our... Okay, whew. We got the upside that Dracula pulled into our Apocalypse. Dracula pulled into their America Chavez. That was a 50-50 for the Dracula pull, which allowed us to get the 6 power swing in Hellfire Club and to find our win condition in the Baxter building. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. Maybe we can get a Lockjaw cycle portion of the game. All right, next up we have Star-Lord, and the first location is Sakaar. It pulls into our Morbius, which is absolutely fine. Probably what we would have played on 2 anyways. Maybe not into that location, but most likely the card that we would have played on 2. And then we have Shuri's Lab, which will double the power of any card that we play there. We have our Calling Wing, which is going to allow us to have free swarms to start rotating out onto the board. And then we could do Absorbing Man on 4 if we wanted to, but I think we're going to prep our Lockjaw on 3. And then we have the free cycles that we can use. We just have some decent upside. They're thinking about it. They're thinking it over. So I'm going to go ahead and snap. We have the strong Morbius that if we get the upside of a really good Lockjaw rotation is going to be really, really hard to beat. And so they don't play anything on 2. We do play our Calling Wing. We discard our Swarms. We now have the 8 power unit of Calling Wing. We now have the free Swarms to discard, and our Apocalypse is going to cost 1 less as well, which is all good news. If we play Apocalypse directly into Shuri's Lab, that's going to be massive. Otherwise, we have the Dracula to absorb it. Now, I don't know where we want to play him. I think we're going to play Dracula into Sakaar. We might need to naturally play Apocalypse into Shuri's Lab on 6 to double that power in that location, because I think we're going to lose in the Titan location. And I don't know that Dracula pulling into these cards is going to be enough. So I think we're going to need to utilize the Shuri's Lab location effect. They do have the Brood, so that's either a Silver Surfer or a Patriot build, but I really do think it's a Silver Surfer because this is a 3 cost as well. And so this is one of those games that I do not think we're going to utilize Absorbing Man. He's great whenever maybe we don't draw into our Dracula and we just need some additional reach from our discard cards. But in this scenario, we're going to cycle out our cards, make Apocalypse as large as possible, and then we have the big Morbius, we have the big resource of either Apocalypse here or America Chavez here. And I think we need to do that and know exactly what we're going to be getting on going into that final turn, so that if we need to play Apocalypse here naturally, we can. So then they play an Iron Man, which is going to be a huge resource into Sakaar. I don't know that we'll be able to beat that, actually. So the Hell Cow comes down. It's going to make our Apocalypse very, very big. Maybe we need to let Apocalypse get absorbed with Dracula. I don't know. It is going to be a very big resource, and I think that's going to be the only way that we can compete with the Iron Man here. But again, I don't know for sure. Now we have Blade. Oh no. So we do have some really big resources in the Titan lane. You might say we have some Titans. They have to... So if they do a Silver Surfer, that's going to buff that lane up by 12, bringing it to 18. If they do more than that, so if they do that and something else, maybe they do a Mystique over there. Maybe they do a Mystique over there and maybe they do a Mystique here and a Silver Surfer here, which would buff this one up by 3, 4, 5, which would be 10 extra power up to 24. I think we're okay. We're going to play our Blade into Shuri's Lab. That's going to double his power. I think we lose Titan, but I think we're okay otherwise. We're going to let Apocalypse discard 2 more times. once from the Blade, once from Dracula, which will buff up Morbius as well, and it will buff up the Apocalypse even further as well. And so is this the Mystique to copy the Iron Man? Is what I am curious of. It is the Mystique to copy the Iron Man, so we are going to lose the Titan location, which is absolutely okay. If this is now a Silver Surfer, oh my gosh, it's like we read it from a book. So that brings them up to 24. We are going to have so much more than 24 power in Sakaar. I'm not sure. They should have retreated there. That should have been pretty easy math to see how many times we had discarded our Apocalypse. I'm glad that they didn't. But we come down with 42 power to compete against their 24 from their Iron Man. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Big Marone. We pull into our Apocalypse, they pull into their Carnage, which is really unfortunate because that is our ticket. Apocalypse is our ticket to a really big high roll. Now we can still discard our Swarm to get a bigger Morbius to get... I mean, we'll take it. We'll take the Calling Wing, which will discard our Swarm. We can then start either cycling. We have Absorbing Man to continue to discard our Swarms. Maybe we can find some decent upside from the Morbius from some of these other cards. I'm torn here. I'm torn. We could just about cap out the Raft location. We could cap it out next turn pretty easily. But I don't know that I want to. I almost would rather do the Lockjaw. We could do a Dracula here. We could then cycle them maybe on turn 5 or turn 6. I don't know that. Oh, and then it double hits our Swarms, which is very, very unfortunate. Let's go ahead and do the Dracula. I want to position this in a way that if we end up capping it out, we can do it with still at least one Swarm in hand. That way we can continue to buff cards, continue to buff up our Morbius, and keep resources in hand. We're going to play our Dracula into Atlantis, and then we will kind of go from there. Next turn, we could do a Hellcow and a Blade. We could do a Lady Sif and a few Swarms. It just really depends on what we need to do. And they do end up dropping and capping out the Raft location. They drop their Killmonger, so they have that trigger out of the way. They still have quite a few resources in the Raft, though. So let's go ahead and do Hellcow. Let's do Blade. We're going to cycle both and see what we can pull out. If we can pull out the Morbius, that's going to be huge. Otherwise, we're looking to discard our Swarm as many times as possible. All right, so they play 2 cards over into Sakaar. We discard both the Swarms with our Hellcow, so we're going to have a Swarm army. Hopefully we're able to pull into a card next turn. I hope we don't cap out ourselves. If this now, let's say, rotates into like Absorbing Man, I don't know. Guys, I don't know. Sometimes I say words and then things happen. Oh my god, Into the Wave is nasty. Oh no. He can only play 1 card here. Oh boy. We could do... okay, we have a... we have a pretty good lead in the Raft. I'm surprised they didn't play their free 6-cost card. Maybe it was something that they needed to play on the final turn. I don't know. But we could have done the Hellcow here for an extra 5, which would have brought us to 13. Dracula could have then absorbed one of the Swarm to push this up a little bit further. I don't know that we had the win condition, but they ended up retreating, so we're fine. Let's jump over into the next one. That wave, they don't know how bad that messed us up. All right, next up we have your Wong. Not mine, but yours. In our starting hand, we have our Blade, our Lockjaw to start our cycle. We have our Dracula, which is going to be good at giving us 1 additional discard in hopefully a massive Apocalypse. We draw into Calling Wing, still nothing great. Next turn, we'll probably prep our Lockjaw into a turn for Dracula into using whatever resources we have. So the Lady Sif would discard our highest cost card, but that's not going to do us a lot of good right now. Let's do our Lockjaw into Kunlun. We're not going to be moving any cards. They do play Domino. I've seen an increase in Domino in 3-cost lists. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but I have seen an increase recently. And so let's do the Lockjaw. We now have Morbius, which is going to be a good one. We definitely need all the Morbing that we can get. Let's do our Dracula into sewer system. Next turn, we'll do something like a Morbius into something else. Ooh, they do a Cosmo into the far left. And so we're just probably not going to cycle our cards, if at all possible. We do get our Apocalypse here, which is good. We definitely needed that. Next turn, we could do a Swordmaster Blade and Calling Wing to buff up our Morbius, to buff up our Apocalypse, to be pulled into in the sewer system. And I think we'll be okay. We're going to go ahead and snap. We're not going to be able to lockjaw anything. That's okay. It turns out that playing that over into the Kunlun lane, where we would probably lose to the Brood anyways, was fine. Let's go ahead and play our Morbius, our Lady Sif. Unless they have a way to do another Cosmo, which would be awful, we should be able to find our upside. They do have Sarah, so they're going to be able to do a big last turn play. They could do both a Silver Surfer and an Absorbing Man. But the issue that they have right now is that their only 3-cost cards are over in Kunlun, and that's not where we're competing for. Let's do our Swordmaster here, our Calling Wing here. We want to put our biggest or highest cost cards, our highest power cards here, because that's going to be the hardest one for us to win. We're going to have to win that one, because Sewer System, I think, will have in the bag between all of the cards that are going to get discarded here. And so let's go ahead and lock this in. They do stack all of their cards over. Oh, the Maximus into the Swordmaster, into the Silver Surfer is a massive last turn play. Can we beat 23 power? Can we discard all of these bad cards? So far, so good. But Dracula may pull into a Swarm, and I don't know that that's enough. We do get the lead on them in the Morbius lane. Dracula pulls into our Hell Cow, so we win the Avengers compound by 1. We win the far right by 5. Oh my gosh. That was scary. That was scary. That was a big power push. They were able to do 3 cost cards here. Both of them being very high-powered cards, very big last-turn power pushes, and we were able to still barely find the win condition. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Morrow Buck, and the first location is Savage Land. We do have 3 of our really good resources in our Morbius, which can get really, really large in this list. We have our Lady Sif to target our Apocalypse, and, of course, our Apocalypse himself. We will play our Morbius here. I think into the Dark Dimension. That's going to be a surprising amount of power that we can push late in the game, because it's going to be a surprise like 12 power push from a card that we dropped on turn 2. And so let's go ahead and we can now do our Lockjaw for a cycle. Let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and play our Lockjaw. Next turn, we can do a Lady Sif and a Blade to cycle those cards, to discard our Apocalypse a couple of times, to have a chance at cycling into cards that are going to discard our Apocalypse even further. Maybe we'll cycle into Dracula. Maybe we just pull into Dracula. No, we don't. Let's do the Lady Sif. Let's do the Blade. We're going to go ahead and snap. We probably discard most of these resources that we have in hand. We'll just utilize whatever we draw into next turn. The more cards that we can discard, the higher power our Morbius is going to be. Of course, we don't want to discard our Calling Wing or our Swordmaster, but I think we do want to start a power push relatively early. So they have the Wolverine, they have the Deadpool. It's a little bit strange to see Wolverine, unless this is a Galactus list, but they've played cards into all of the locations, so I doubt it's Galactus at this point. So Lady Sif discards our Apocalypse. Let's rotate that out, maybe into a Hell Cow. Strange, which discards both of the non-good resources. But now if we do Blade, that's guaranteed to do Apocalypse. We can rotate into Absorbing Man. Can I call that one too? No, into Swarm. Dang, that's not what we wanted to see. So the last card that we physically played was Blade. So that should let us discard our Apocalypse here. I don't think it copies the Swarm. Let's go ahead and do Absorbing Man. That should discard our Apocalypse even further, and then we're going to rotate back into one of our other resources. So Lady Sif. We have Lady Sif. We have Chavez. We have Dracula still. We have Calling Wing. We just have a lot of resources and a lot of really good resources left in our deck. We don't have Calling Wing. We discarded Calling Wing. and we discarded Swordmaster. So we have Blade, we have Lady Sif, we have America Chavez, and then we have Dracula are the 4 that we have left. So they do play Deadpool. They discard him, or they destroy him. He goes up to an 8 power card. We discard our Apocalypse 1 additional time and flip into our Dracula, our America Chavez. Okay, we can work with that. That's 10 power here. How many cards have we discarded this game? A lot more than 2. So we've discarded at least 5 cards. So that means that this is a 10 power Morbius under here. I think we're going to play our Apocalypse into Savage Land. We're going to hope that they push some of their big resources into Hell's Kitchen, and that 10 power is enough to win us the Dark Dimension. That is what we're shooting for. That is what we're hoping for. So the Killmonger comes down. It doesn't destroy much from our end. The Forge into the Deadpool brings them to 21. Is the 10 power enough in this lane? It is. We are able to find the win condition in the Dark Dimension because they had such a power push to overcome in Hell's Kitchen that by playing Apocalypse into Savage Land, we were able to find our win condition with the hidden Morbius. But that is game number 5. We are going to go ahead and end it here. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Absorbing Man is a pretty decent, he adds to that kind of consistency when you are doing your Lockjaw rotation, but I wouldn't say he's core by any means. You can absolutely run this with just about any other card besides Absorbing Man. You can even do Moon Knight as a secondary way to discard your cards along with your opponents. It just really depends on what your preference is and what you're wanting to play. But I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. I have a lot of different builds for some of the new cards that I've been pulling. Absorbing Man is going to be featured in a lot of lists because he is so flexible and being able to just kind of slot in to just about anywhere that runs strong on reveal cards. But I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.